Why can't Kurtzman leave the Klingons alone? Why, in Starfleet Academy, has he messed with them again, and messed with them in a way that makes no bloody sense? Welcome to Taco Post Podcasts, your place for sci-fi news, rumour, and debate.
Our tachyon pulse has been unable to completely penetrate the anomaly.
We have two Klingon characters in the new Starfleet Academy. I'm going to have to read their names because these are characters I'm probably never going to care about. Commander Lurathok, who is a Klingon Jem'Hadar hybrid female. And we have Nusbraka, who is a Klingon Tellarite hybrid. Kurtzman Trek really annoys me. Right, now there's two things I'm going to sort of point out here. For one, the Klingons were actually very proud of their pure blood. It was one of their things. So again, it doesn't make any sense that they would, as a species, allow to do this. But when did it happen? Right, so the Dominion War was 2373, okay? The burn was 3069. So that, fair enough, is, 600 years between the two events. The Dominion had buggered off back to the Gamma Quadrant. Now, there may have been some Jem'Hadar left, but they would have to then created these hybrid species before the burn happened. So I'm not sure when that would have happened, especially, as I say, the Klingons were so against this kind of thing. The Tellarites, how does that even happen? Look, I can kind of argue that the Jem'Hadar could happen because the Jem'Hadar was such a similar species to the Klingons in many ways. You know, the battle, the conflict, etc., etc. Now, the Jem'Hadar were bred. There weren't any females, they were bred. But say they shed off the Dominion somehow, or there was some Jem'Hadar left in the Alpha Quadrant, and the whites didn't kill them for whatever reason, or lack of white didn't kill them or whatever, then, which we knew actually the Federation had tried to come up with a way of avoiding that. But then say a male Jem'Hadar does the dirty jiggle with a female Klingon, you in theory would get a crossbreed, and I could kind of understand how that would happen. But my other point here really is a bit more to do with Kurtzman, and really, how did he not learn his bloody lesson already? We got, as Trekkies, quite annoyed with the J.J. Abrams Klingons. And we said, look, that's not a Klingon, what the hell is this? But we let it slide to a degree because we went, okay, it's a different universe, even though it had only split just before these events. So how did the Klingons change that much, even though it's a different universe? You know, from the Kelvin incident to Star Trek movie was, 30 years or something? But the Klingons were completely different. But we let it slide, different universe, okay. But we still kicked off. We still went, what the hell? And Kurtzman looked at that and went, oh, they'll be fine. I'll change them again. So we then get Discovery Season 1, and we get these bloody Play-Doh-looking Klingons that were just creepy because he hadn't learned his lesson from the first time. Now, he then realised and changed the Klingons back to the Klingons we knew, tried to sort of retrospect, nonsense, retroactively go, oh, we just did it for this reason. They're just a different species. We then started to see some that sort of looked a bit like the Play-Doh ones, a bit like normal ones. Obviously, we then saw Worf come back as a normal one. We're like, look, it's a bit like how Chinese, Asian, North African people or whatever from different parts of the world look a bit different. And that's what's going on with the Klingons. Honest. Yeah, okay, we never saw that before, but you go with that. The retrospective nonsense. They're always doing this in Star Trek, trying to come up with an excuse for their mistakes after the point. Ugh. But he didn't learn from the J.J. Abrams incident. He didn't learn from Discovery Season 1. And he's done it again. And this is down to Kurtzman, by the way, because he is co-showrunner in Starfleet Academy. So he is directly involved in this. And again, he's messed with the Klingons. The one species that would probably be most against hybridized individuals within the Empire are the ones that he's done it with. Humans having a hybrid human or whatever. We're kind of used to that. We have half Klingons, half thing, well, half Klingons, half Vulcans, or whatever. We kind of have allowed it. The Klingons would be dead set against it, like purebloods. The houses, of like pureblood Klingons and stuff was really core to their civilization. It makes no bloody sense that they would allow it, but more importantly, Kurtzman hasn't learned his bloody lesson. Why do it? This is, again, the point. Why do it? What they could have done is add a Klingon. A purebred Klingon. This Nusbraka could have been just a Klingon. Not Tellarite, a Klingon. And then they could have had Lurathok. And they could have said, well, that is a Klingon Jem'Hadar hybrid. And I'd have gone, okay, I can get my head around that they would have done that, as I said earlier. And then you could have had a really interesting sort of like conflict between those two, because you said a purebred Klingon, which is what I think the Empire would aspire to, and then this, half-breed sort of thing. And you could have had a really interesting conflict there. But instead, they've hybridized both of them, taken away a really interesting storyline. So again, why do that? The whole point that she's a female, I know a couple of people have pointed out and going, oh, it's canon male. And I'm like, no, all they got to do is explain, as I said, that the Jem'Hadar have split from the Dominion and started breeding. They would have to do that, and they would have to breed with another species. So the fact that she's a hybrid isn't that bad, and I can understand why it's a Klingon. They could have had a really interesting pureblood, half-breed sort of storyline there, but because they're clearly thick, they didn't do that. Now, I do understand that they're going to have a lot of the storylines within Starfleet Academy about species that haven't interacted with each other for a long time because of the burn, coming back together again, trying to rebuild the Federation with species that have had nothing to do with the Federation for a long time, have not had to cooperate with anyone for a long time. And there's some really interesting ways of doing that within the storyline. But this isn't it. They didn't have to do this. And why have they done it with the Klingons again, you fucking morons? But guys, what do you think? Get into comments and please tell me. Why is it always the Klingons? You give me a bloody good excuse and I'll apologise because I don't get it. This is the one species I really don't get. And generally speaking, do you feel that this is just Kurtzman again? That he really should have learned his lesson? And do we have to just ask why not? Get into the comments and tell me exactly what you think. If you are new to the channel, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. It really helps us out and you'll never miss any of our new videos. Also, you can become a member of the channel and get to see a lot of these videos before everybody else. Go check that out too. As always, please stay safe and I'll see you next time.
Our tachyon pulse has been unable to completely penetrate the anomaly.